Danny from PICO here. A lot of exciting news coming from PICO with the announcement of PICO 4 Ultra and the PICO Swift trackers. Can't wait to make a video on those. For this video series, we'll be focusing on MR and SensePack. We reworked our new MR APIs. So with the PICO 4 Ultra coming out, it just unlocks a lot of opportunities and abilities for you guys to do more things in mixed reality, especially with a much stronger chip on that device. So with the new MR rework, we'll start off with this video. We'll go through see-through, how to set up spatial anchors. Then in the next videos, we'll go through scene capture, spatial meshing, all the things you need to do to get started with MR. Key requirements for this project is the PICO device needs to be 5.11 OS. We're using Unity Integration SDK 3.0 and Unity 2022. After setting up see-through, we're going to have a road and a ball. The road is going to be our spatial anchor object, and the ball will be dynamic, be able to roll across the room. Let's get started. Okay, back in Unity. Here we're going to check our package manager. We have our XR Interaction Toolkit 3.0, XR Hands 1.5. We won't really need XR Hands till much later. And PICO Integration 3.0 and the PICO SDKs inside packages folders, and right there. Okay, let's go ahead and grab our prefab starter assets inside Unity and prefabs here in XR origin that Unity provides. And let's set our tracking origin mode to floor. And let's go ahead and get rid of the controllers. I'm only going to be using the right controller right now, but of course you can turn off, close off the controller visual, the universal controller on the left and right. You can remove both. Make sure you reset the positions and the scale on the controller visuals, as you won't need that. Go here. And of course the camera offset and the main camera needs to be set to 0 as well. And all the visual stuff that Unity provides, you can go ahead and remove that. We don't need any kind of controller animation, so let's drop that prefab there. And renderer, we'll be using balance the renderer. HDR will be off. Background color here, we're going to switch that to select to solid color, and we're going to change it to black. You can swipe it down to 0 or go move it to black there. Okay. Go player settings and company name, whatever you want to write here. I'll just write PICO right there. Don't need to override any company and package names here, so set that to that. Minimum API level 29. Target API automatic highest. Architecture ARM64. Make sure you change the scripting back end. Looks good. PICO multi-view is enabled, optimize buffer discards, and enable PICO in the plugin management. Make sure you check all the project validation. It says we have a second camera, and we have to add PXR Let's first remove the camera and lighting. We don't need that. And then go into our XR origin and add our PXR Manager. PXR Manager is important. You need it. It controls a lot of your mixed reality features like video see-through, spatial anchor, scene capture. For this particular project, we'll be focused on video see-through and spatial anchors. All right, quality, we'll switch to the balance, better for VR for now. You can change quality settings later. Go to click on the render pipeline here and make sure you check out HDR. And set that alias to 4x. Sure, we need to remove screen space and ambient occlusion, but we can do that later. Don't have to worry about for now, but it's something to make a note of. Make sure always check for SSAO. Make sure you remove that. Scripts. And for video see-through, after you enable PXR Manager, you have to enable it in code as well using Unity xr.pxr. Very important. I'm using it a lot. And the video see-through is actually inside PXR Manager.enable video see-through. And you just gotta set this to true. Setting this true here, you also need to just make sure on application pause, when it is pause, video see-through is off. When it's not pause, video see-through is true, so it's opposite of each other. You can just do a quick little note here. And this will be like an event. Anytime the application is paused, it will call this method here, and then it will just run this code. Great. And for my code, usually I make a little parent called managers, and anything will be just a child of that. So make an empty child, name it Seethrough, and then add the Seethrough script. Helps with my organization. Okay, save it. Make sure you add your current scene, plug in your device, refresh, and go and check it out. This works. If you don't see your device, make sure you have developer mode on and you have upgrade your OS. Let's go ahead and copy Seethrough and call it AnchorManager. We know this code works. Rename this to AnchorManager. Great. Let's add our components for the controllers. Input action reference. So one reference for your right grip. When you right grip, you want to do something. I usually like pressing the right grip more than the A button, which is our right primary. So I'll probably do our road here and then our ball when you're pressing the right primary there. Then add our game components there. So we're going to need our prefabs of a road and a ball. The road will be our spatially locked object, when the ball will not be a spatial anchor. So go ball preview and road preview. Preview is when you press a button, you see it. When you let go, we're going to instantiate it. So we're going to need two of those objects. Actually, this order there. So right grip, right primary, right grip, right primary. So yeah, that works a little bit better for me. And for the spatial anchors to be enabled, you actually have to start the provider. And when you're done, you can turn off the provider. So this kind of helps with the optimization. For now, we'll just enable it and disable when they're done. So since start provider takes in a since data provider type, it takes in two, scene capture or spatial anchor. Right now, we're just focusing on spatial anchor. So this allows you to tell if this actually is working or not. So if it is a success, then we're able to use spatial anchors. Great, we can continue. So our anchor provider state is active. Let's go and run this code at the start. So once this is true, we can move on and start creating our objects. So we want to be assigning these methods to our buttons. So when you're pressing the right grip or pressing the right primary, we're going to be doing some kind of action. So right grip, action just started. So started is when first time you press it, cancels when you let go of the button. So when you let go, when you press the grip button, an event will be started. And then when you let go, the canceled event will be called as well. And for you to use this kind of method to subscribe to this event, the input needs to be an input action.callback context. We won't actually be using the callback context, but we know the event will run this specific method when we are assigned to it. Great. Let's set it up here on right grip pressed, on right grip released. Once you subscribe to an event, you need to describe to the event. So on enable, then on disable. That will be true every single time. All other buttons will be doing. So on the right grip, we're going to show our preview object. And some kind of, when we release, we want to instantiate or basically making our spatial anchor at the same time. Of course, yeah. Let's do make anchor, then instantiate. Make sure it works. Let's start with basically you want to be showing the road preview. This will be on our controller. We'll have it off when you press the button, show it. When you release it, we're going to hide the preview button, then instantiate it. Since I'm going to be using multiple objects, let's just make a method to kind of handle this for me. I wrote the method here just so I can clearly know what I'm trying to do at this specific step. And then on release, we're going to actually create our spatial anchor. Once you create our spatial anchor, we're going to instantiate, and then we're going to unshow our preview. So in order to create a spatial anchor, we're going to need to know what kind of prefab we're trying to instantiate and what object we're reusing. So we were showing our road preview, so then we're going to be using that road preview's position, and we're going to be using the road prefab. And in order to get that, we actually have to have our road prefab here. So let's add it up here. Let's copy this. Road prefab. So the road prefab and road preview, exact same thing, just the road preview will be on our controller and it won't have any kind of rigid body or anything like that. So get back to create spatial anchor. So if the provided state is not active, we can't run our create spatial anchor. Just make sure you double check that. And let's go ahead and stash our transform from our preview object. Call point, just to make it not so long. And we're going to be using PXR mixed reality create spatial anchor async. And the result will tell if this is success or not. When we're creating it at the point position and rotation. If result equals PXR result.success. Yay. Congratulations, we created our first spatial anchor. And let's make a little log here to make sure what the status of this. Okay. First, we want to add our prefab to a specific location. Game object, we're going to instantiate it. And what we're going to instantiate our anchor prefab. And at the position of our preview object, which is our transform, is in our point. So point position, point rotation. And once that is finished, we are going to hide our preview object. We no longer need it. We have anything. So we're going to press our grip button, show the road. We'll release it. It will create a spatial anchor at the point where we released it at. And we're going to hide our road in our controller, and then we'll instantiate the road at that same position. But at the same time, we do want to keep track of our spatial anchors. One, to handle spatial drift, and two, to allow us to delete it when we want to. So if you take a look at here on our result here, and right there, where our result is actually a U-long anchor handle. And the anchor handle is how you're going to be able to keep track of these different spatial anchors you create. And as we're going to assign this U-long to the specific transform of where we put it at. Okay, so we're going back down here, add in our anchor map, add the results. So we're going to do result.anchorHandle, and we're going to add in our anchor objects transform. Great. Same time, let's add a delete. Delete last object. So another benefit of having an anchor map, you're able to use it to kind of delete and find the last one. But the easiest way for me is actually creating a stack of our game object. So then when you press delete, you actually delete the latest one, and then we're going to use the ulong handle to make sure you remove the spatial anchor from the memory. So having a stack, so that way you can just add it in, push every time you create an object, just push it onto the stack. Every time we want to delete, we run the method and it's going to delete the latest one. Anchor handle. Actually, result.anchor handle. Okay. And this is one object. So every time we want to pop it, we're going to have a tuple. Tuple is going to have item 1 and item 2. Item 1 will be our game object. Item 2 will be our ulong anchor handle. Since this is unsigned, a ulong has to be positive, so 0 and up. If it's not 0, then it's valid. So if it does have a value in the anchor handle, we also need to run anchor. So we actually need to destroy the anchor so it gets removed from our memory. So after you do that, you go ahead and destroy the game object, which is stored in our item 1. Item 1 is our game object. Item 2 is our anchor handle, which is a ulong. Unsigned. And let's go ahead and add some notes here. Just to let me know if this is successful or not. I think it's just 2-string. Okay, looks good. And then we're going to be assigning this to our left primary. So left primary will be on the left hand main button there. And we're going to need to add our input action maps. Create a brand new action map here, call it PICO XR. Okay, let's call it, we have our right grip for action, and we're going to have a right primary and a left primary. So right primary, left primary, let's just call it, use PICO controller, the right grip pressed, correct controller, PICO controller there, right, and then right primary button, then the path be XR controller, PICO controller, left hand, and primary button. Those are actions. Make sure you save the asset. Let's add in our script to remove see-through and add our AnchorManager. So we'll create the road and the ball later. And there you go. Let's add in our right grip, the input action references. Left primary, grip. There you go. Right grip, right primary, left primary. Now we can create our ball. So a ball here, a little bit large for our scale there. So we're going to need to create a road preview and a road prefab and a ball and a, okay. Let's add in the code for that for the left primary. So we're going to delete last object there on the left primary. I don't need to worry about cancel. I'm not showing any kind of preview. So as soon as I press the button, I'm going to delete it. So create a callback context for that. Let's call it on left primary pressed. Callback context. On left primary pressed. Missing the equal button right there. And delete last object. So on left primary pressed, we're going to delete the last object. And yeah, make sure if there's no objects in our stack, don't do anything. Little error handling. Okay. Then do the same thing, right primary. So there is going to be an action started and action canceled. Action started, action. And right primary. So just copy what I had before. And here I'll be showing my ball preview. And on the right primary release, we're actually, since the ball is dynamic, we don't actually want to be creating a spatial anchor for this. We're just gonna create an object. So on the right primary release, we're gonna create an object, ball preview. And we're going to instantiate our object at the preview position and preview rotation. And we're going to add that to our stack. Moving forward, we won't have the ball in the object stack, but just for now, we'll just add it. And since we're going to add, since the ball is not going to be a spatial object, we're just going to have the min value as our anchor handle for the object stack. So on left primary press, we're going to delete an object. All right. On object, right primary pressed, and right primary release. Copy that. Anything we subscribe, desubscribe, and action canceled. When we release, canceled. Great. Now we can create our prefab. So let's reset our transform. This is going to be our ball prefab. Set the scale to 0.05. That might be too small, but we'll see. We'll work it for now. Go back to it. Create a folder called materials. Have material for our ball, material for our road, and material for our... We want to create some walls on our road. Actually, let's create some grass. We'll make the bottom of the road green and the sides a little bit higher on the side. We'll create some walls there. Sounds good. And just make our ball blue. All these will work, but for now we will just use the URP's lit shader. And let's make our road. But basically we're just gonna try to get the right sizing we want. The scale is gonna be that. So it's going to have some kind of long bottom relative to the size of our ball, and we're going to have walls on the side. We're going to set the grass in the middle is green and the wall is that. So I'm going to go and speed up the process, and just so you get an idea of what we're trying to do. Once you get the road how you want, we're going to add our parent of our road as the rigid body, and then the cues will have our collider, because only the parent needs to have one rigid body if you have something like this set up. And make sure there's no gravity on the road, but there's gravity on the ball. Go and add these as your prefab. Now, since we already made some prefabs, we're going to make our preview. So we're going to add these. Actually, I think the size of the scale of the ball is too small, so we're changing that. So now our ball is going to be too big relative to our road. So we just go to our road and just increase the scale of our parent. Add 3, still too small. Let's go bigger. 10 by 10. That seems good. Now go ahead, let's move these to our right controller. So as the right hand moves, you want to see the preview there. So let's go and add the scale changes we did to our prefab. Once we do that, so you want these at the same position as our controller, but a little bit to the front. So we're going to change the Z value, increase the Z value there, but we're going to remove the height of the Y. So make sure the Z value is positive in front of our player, in front of our controller. Then something around there is fine. And these are just a preview. You don't want these to be having some kind of rigid body or colliders on these, so you can turn these off. You just want to show the mesh, visually show. That's why they're just a preview. And in our prefab, you're going to restore the ball after 10 seconds because we changed our prefab, and the ball prefab here, it's still a prefab. We're going to make sure you remove the destroy self. So let's go ahead and unpack this. So any more changes won't affect this. The ball prefab, remove the destroy self. Great. These are just the mesh. There's no colliders on this. There's no gravity. There's no destroy self. Go to remove the Y value. And let's call, the Y is fine. The X is fine. Great. Let's rename these as our preview. So when we press a button, these will be enabled. When we let go, these will be disabled, and it will be following our right controller. And then add our prefabs. Looks good. Okay. Go ahead and save this. Save our project. Make sure everything is good. Let's build and test. So on the right grip, we're able to create a row that has a spatial anchor. Left primary, we're going to delete something. A, we're going to instantiate our ball. So if you notice, the ball's going to go through the sofa in the world because the ground doesn't have our spatial mesh, and the sofa doesn't have our seam catcher. So in the next video, we're going to handle seam catcher and how to have our physics on our world objects. See you in the next one.